Unless Sony pulls a magic rabbit out of the hat, Sucker Punch's newest IP, Ghost of Tsushima, is the last exclusive on PlayStation 4. It comes hot on the heels of the most anticipated game of the generation in the terms of The Last of Us Part 2. So how does it hold up? Is it a game that you can jump straight into following that? My name is Doragon, and these are my first thoughts on Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima is not one of those games that was realistically on my radar for a long time. I was excited for things like God of War, Spider-Man, The Last of Us Part 2. Ghost of Tsushima was one of those additional exclusives that Sony was getting, the ones that people don't normally talk about. But as time got closer to its release, and I managed to step away from my bias on loving Infamous, Sucker Punch's previous IP, I was able to see what joy people were getting out of it when the review embargo lifted at the start of last week. It gave me a real sense that this was a game that I wanted to play. Many people were likening it to Assassin's Creed and to Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. There were a lot of positives coming out of it. I've now spent about 8 hours with the game on and off camera, and I've got a good idea of what my first impressions are of it. And the reality is, it's nothing new. Now, that comment is not a slight on Ghost of Tsushima at all, but it is a realistic take on it. To put it in perspective, coming from The Last of Us Part 2, a game that took narrative and gameplay risks left and right, challenging the player to actually get through the gameplay, Ghost of Tsushima is very safe in comparison. Everything in this game has been done before. The whole samurai setting, the whole different stance thing. We've seen it in different mediums left, right and centre. The way the story is told is incredibly safe. The character is incredibly safe. And I feel Sucker Punch have done that a little bit after the backlash from Infamous Second Son, because that wasn't loved as much as the previous Infamous games, bringing in a new protagonist, giving him a different flair, a different ideal to what Cole had previously. Whereas Jin in Ghost of Tsushima is the upright, stalwart samurai. Now, where I am within the story, I'm starting to see that change. He's starting to take on this idea that face-first honourable battles are not the only way to win back his homeland. And he's becoming that character that you've heard about later in the game, the Ghost of Tsushima, where he's realising that there's other ways to win fights. They may just not be as honourable. But everything in the game is safe. But that's fine. It's like when you look at competition shows like the Great British Bake Off, the Great Pottery Throwdown, all those sorts of things. Safe is fine if it's executed well. And all credit to Sucker Punch here. They have executed everything that they have done within Ghost of Tsushima incredibly well. Let's first take a look at the gameplay, the core of any new IP. Swordplay is a big part of Ghost of Tsushima, and this feels different to pretty much any other swordplay ever. Now, I'm not one of those people who in Assassin's Creed titles, in Souls titles, and all that sort of stuff, uses the lock-on mechanism. So for me, this game not having that isn't a big deal. In fact, it's a very good deal because it means I can switch my target on the fly, as I've done in previous games from other developers previously. It also means that when you're getting mobbed by enemies, where they are coming at you from all different directions, that you are able to react, you're able to dodge out the way, parry to your left or right. It opens up a world of combat that is not as restrictive as those games that lock on to a single target. That's how I feel about it, anyhow. The more stealthy approach, you have to unlock it to become better at it. You actually feel like you're training yourself up to become better at the stealth side of the game. I really enjoy that. It reminds me very much of Ezio in Assassin's Creed 2, one of the best games within that series. Brotherhood is, however, the best. Traversal is very much what we're used to from Sucker Punch. A bit light, a bit floaty, but overall, it gets the job done for you, regardless of where you're trying to go, whether it's up a cliff, whether it's on horseback along a riverbank. It does the job, and it's what we're used to from the Sucker Punch development team. Graphically, this game is a bit of a difficult sell after The Last of Us Part 2. If you never played that game, this is an incredibly beautiful, stylized experience. It's fantastic. And even if you have played that game, you have to accept how beautiful Ghost of Tsushima is in and of itself. The problem that I faced coming to it was the stark difference between what Naughty Dog had done a month earlier and what Sucker Punch had done a month later. And they felt like a generational difference. Naughty Dog honestly felt like they put out a game that was PS5 worthy on PS4. And that's something that I have to remember when playing it, let alone the standard consumer. So, as long as you can overcome that thought process of what you've played previously, what may look better, The Ghost of Tsushima is an incredibly pretty game, very well stylized for that Japanese Sunday afternoon drama ideal that you see anywhere that you go when in Japan. And I think it is well done. It's the right graphical move for this game and this story. Ghost of Tsushima, like the infamous games before it, is an open world adventure. And the open world that has been created here by Sucker Punch is very similar in some ways and very different in others. The infamous worlds always felt lively, they always felt like something was going on at all times. It was a bustling, busy city life, whether you were playing as our original or secondary protagonist in the first two or the third game, it didn't matter. Life was ongoing, cars were moving, people were walking, etc, etc. Tsushima is war-torn. It's an island ravaged by a Mongol invasion, and it shows as such. You come across areas that are completely burnt out with bodies strewn across the floor. You come upon survivor camps, and they're staying wholeheartedly within those camps to simply survive. It's an alive world, but in a very different way. It's a war from the 1200s. And I think that Sucker Punch actually show that off quite well. What that would entail, realistically, how people would have to live. I love the world. I love the beauty of it. I love the expansiveness. The fact that it's a singular island is a great thing. And it means it doesn't feel like New York compact or Seattle compact. It feels like Tsushima. And that in itself is a great accomplishment for this game. Mission design in these first 8 hours also feels quite open, quite fresh, quite unique, and that is a rare thing to feel for an open world game. Most of the time you find that your mission design becomes repetitive. Tail X, Y, Z. Go to point B and kill 20 people, that sort of thing. Now don't get me wrong, those sorts of missions do exist here in Tsushima, but you expect to be fighting regularly. You're a samurai after all, and the one thing you want to do is notch that sword and draw it. But the variety of missions, whilst they may be the same as other open world games, the manner and order in which they're presented, and of course this does depend in which order you pick things up and do them, but overall there's that many distractions, that many options to go and do, that it never feels tiresome. You never feel like you're doing 3 or 4 trail missions on the trot, or 3 or 4 go to point B and kill so many people missions on the trot. It is always something that you've done before, but not just done. I imagine by the end of this game, I'm sort of 8-9 hours in, and I'm still on Act 1. I imagine there's 3 acts. From reviews that I've seen, there's 3 acts. And I imagine by the end of those 3 acts, even the way that they've designed it so it doesn't feel like you're doing the same mission type one after the other, it will get repetitive towards the end. But right now, at an 8-hour mark in a big open world game in the PS4 generation, to not have mission design fatigue is a huge credit to the storytelling and the acting and the direction. It's also a huge credit to the mission design and pacing. And it's also really nice and fresh. All these open world games, whether it's witchers, assassins, superheroes, or anything else, they all become repetitive, I find, doing the same thing over and over again. For an 8-hour mark to not have felt that yet, that's a big design key and a big thing to keep you engaged to the end of the story. And Sucker Punch, once again, must be commended for that. So what are my overarching first thoughts? I think Ghost of Tsushima is a great game. I think it's a little bit jarring coming from something like The Last of Us Part 2, and it was always going to be. Like, Naughty Dog have always had that pinnacle of technological advancement on PlayStation systems. Ghost of Tsushima is a fun game. It does nothing new, it doesn't try to reinvent the wheel. And for a lot of people, especially PlayStation owners, they need that right now after the challenge that was The Last of Us Part 2. The Japanese setting, the fact that we've got Oriental Japanese actors across the board is brilliant, whether it's the Japanese voice actors or the English voice actors. That is a brilliant bit of representation that has been sorely missing in some recent years. The gameplay loop is fun, engaging, and rewarding. The pacing seems right on at the moment. And I feel that this is going to be 2020's Spider-Man. What I mean by that is Spider-Man is one of my all-time favourite games. Marvel's Spider-Man on PS4 is my favourite Spider-Man story ever told. That goes above Big Time, that goes above Brand New Day and Spider-Verse and Civil War. It blows them all away. It is the singular best Spider-Man story that's ever been told, and it was told on the PlayStation 4 system. But it came out in the same year that God of War came out. And God of War went from having no expectations to changing what the pinnacle of hack-and-slash storytelling meant. And that blew Spider-Man away. Ghost of Tsushima, for me, is in that exact same boat. It has come out after The Last of Us Part 2. And regardless of what your thoughts are on that, whether you liked it or just hated the game because a character dies pretty early, it's a hard act to follow. And when you consider the storytelling risks, the graphical fidelity, the gameplay tightness that's there in The Last of Us, and the lightweight, more fun approach that you get here in Ghost of Tsushima, there are direct parallels to God of War and Spider-Man in 2018. I love this game. I can feel myself raging and raving about this game for many, many more years. But I do feel it's going to be overshadowed by its predecessor, The Last of Us Part 2. And that is a massive, massive shame. I'd like to thank you all very much for tuning in. This is only my initial thoughts. I will come back to this after I've completed the game. It's a big open world game, so it's going to take me a little bit longer than a linear story like The Last of Us Part 2. So a couple of weeks down the line, I'll probably get a full review out for this game. I'm really enjoying my time with it. It's one that I feel any PlayStation owner should pick up. But in the meantime, thank you all very much for tuning in. Have yourselves a fantastic day. My name is Doragon, This is my Ghost of Tsushima first thoughts, and until next time, folks, take care.